All right, last video we talked about the vector and its very basic implementation, which is getting a vector created, declaration. We talked about the pushback function and how that is able to create an element and then add, the actual value into it. So whether it be a string or if we just put a number here for an int or so on, a string needs to go in quotes. A number would just be within the parentheses. So nothing crazy there. And then the access for the vector is pretty much the exact same as all container stuff that we've done with array. So no surprises there, nothing crazy. Let's go ahead and show you what this looks like with functions. So let's make a function for adding a single item. And let's go ahead and make a function for printing the entire list. All right, so we're going to print the entire list, and we're going to go ahead and just have a function for adding one single item. The idea is that we can just use that function over and over again. So let's, without any further ado, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to get rid of this and start from here. So here's the only difference from the vector and the array that you got to be aware of. Um, the way that a vector is going to be passed into a function is very different from the array. The array actually gets passed by reference. We learned that. So it's a memory address that it's dealing with. Whenever we pass a vector into a function, we're not directly editing the memory addresses there. So this could be a problem if your approach isn't sound. So if I have a requirement for this vector to stay in main, I have to leave it in main. That's my requirement. And if I have a function, say add item, we'll call it add item, and this function here is going to take in the vector to add an item to, and then change this list back in main. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to take the vector in as argument, and then what I'm going to have to do is return the vector at the end of the day. So if I do that, here's exactly how this is going to have to look. So I can do this actually two ways. I can use reference and actually deal with where it sits. I'm going to show you this pass-through system. The only reason why I'm showing you this here is I'd really like you to be very comfortable about taking a vector in as an argument and returning a vector in its entirety, because you can do that here, and that's pretty powerful. So I'm going to take as argument a vector to match the one that I have up there in main, vector of type string. I'll just keep it the same name, called list. At the end of this, I'm going to return a vector, the exact same vector of type string. So vector of type string. And at this point in time, I'm ready to prototype, because I'm going to forget to prototype at the end of this. I know it, and then I'm going to embarrass myself. All right, there we go. Cool. So add item is done, and we just need to take in the vector, add something to the list, and then go from there. So the way that I'll have this designed is that I'm actually going to have the user input stuff here. So I'll put it here. We'll just do that just to keep things moving. What item do you have to add to the list? So we'll do that. And that also signals that we're going to need something to store this item into. So string item. And we'll probably need to capture the item. And if we have something like two words, like Pop-Tarts or something like that, then we need to make sure that we can capture the whole string in its entirety. So remember how to do that. GetLine was the function to do that. GetLine takes two arguments. It takes the object in which the action you're performing, which is cn, and then we have the item, the identifier of the string that we made up here. All right, so get line, cin, item, done. Great. Now we're going to push this vector back in with this item, and then we're going to return it. So all we have to do is say list dot push back item. List pushback item. It's there. It's now inside of this vector here, this local vector. Now what we need to do is we need to get it back. We need to get it back out of here. So to do that, we need to return list, the entire vector. Okay, so now it's being returned. And so at this point, what we can do is we can say every time that we go and add something to this list here, it's then going to be updated. The entire list will then be updated. So yes, we would be every time that we add something overwriting this original list here. But the way that pushback works is that it's going to push a new element. It's going to take all of the old existing elements and only add one onto the back of that element list. So if there's an element 0, it becomes an element 1, the new one. And then if it's an element 1, it becomes a 2, so on, so on, so on. So technically this will work. Yeah, it can be a little dangerous, but we'll talk about error handling and other safety measures later. This is more or less just to show us how vector works and some of the cool things that we can do with it. All right, so with that in mind, we can say, hey, list, go update yourself with add item and go ahead and pass in yourself into that, and boom, there we go. That would then repopulate the list with something new. All right, so then what we need to do is we need to have a void function here where we're going to just say print list, and this is going to take a vector of string, and this is also going to be called list as well. Now the idea here is that we're going to go ahead and just have a for loop and just see out for every single element that there's there. Here's another cool, powerful tactic with the vector that makes life so much easier. So we're going to make that for loop for int I equals 0. I is less than, we don't know the size of our vector. But we can. So if we did list.size, that's an actual function that will come with the vector that can say, hey, vector, how big are you? It's going to return an unsigned int. So that way we understand exactly how many elements that are there in that vector, and we can go ahead and just use that for loop control. Sure, why not? I++. All right, here we go. So for int I equals 0, I is less than size, I++, and we're going to turn around and go cout. We'll just put a little, how about we do this? We do the I variable, and then we'll go ahead and do, this is just like for some flavor. Here we go. So like the number of the list, and then we'll do list at position I. And let's do I+1. That way to like start like 1, 2, 3. Cause it's weird when people see lists that start with 0. Yeah, I think this looks good. Okay, don't forget that prototype. All right, so we're gonna go ahead then and just use the print list. I'm gonna close that so I can see real quick. All right, print list. At this point in time, we'll do print list, and we're gonna pass in as argument the list to print. There it is. There it is. Now, if I wanted to just test this through and through with just one ability to add, one element, just see how it's working. What item do we have to add to the list? Eggs. I have eggs. That's great. Now let's keep going through this. Maybe if we put in a loop with some control. Let's have like char choice, and let's have let's do the first. I'm gonna just do this like quickly, so that way we can just keep moving on. While choice is going to be equivalent to uppercase Y, we're going to keep running around this loop. Okay, so let me do this actually. There we go. We're going to see out. Do you want to add another item to the list? I'm not just like add another item to the list. Boom. Then what we're going to do is we're going to cin into choice. Then I'll just do this real quick because you see that uppercase Y up there. It's got to be uppercase, otherwise it's going to break. So let's just do this. Choice is equivalent to 2 upper. This function, if you've never seen this before, this just is a function that says take whatever you have as argument and make it the uppercase version. There's also a 2 lower as well, so you can on the inverse of this, make everything lowercase. It takes a character, just a single character, takes that character, puts it to uppercase or lowercase if you use 2 lower. So in this setup here, I'm going to take whatever I get and just uppercase it. That way, if it's an uppercase Y, it passes. If it's an uppercase N, well, it's not going to pass and we break. If they enter in garbage, it break. The loop will break. So there we go. What item do you have to add to the list? Eggs. Add another item, lowercase y. What item do you have to add to the list? Oh, there's a little issue that we're running into right here. This is actually good that you see this. It's a buffer issue where there's still something in the buffer, and it's picking that up and skipping over that. Now that's an artifact of this. Where is it? GetLine. Where are you, Getline? Oh, my function's closed. There it is. Boom, this Getline. And so there's an issue with this here. If you did not use getLine, you wouldn't see this. If you use getLine, you might have to do something like modifying the buffer to make sure that it stops. Some people use cin.ignore. And you can actually pass in arguments into this. If you didn't pass in arguments into this, it would then it would just ignore the next thing in the buffer here. So if we just did something like this, you'll see that there's some result with this. Eggs, and then see how it then ignores. You have to click this key again. It's not very ideal. There's a way to actually like check and see if there's something in the buffer and so on. It's kind of a dumb problem to have to solve at this level, to be honest with you. But it is what it is. Yes. Milk. Okay, so then we have eggs, and then we've lost the milk. So it's a really stupid problem to have to solve. If I just wanted to show you just what this looks like without having to solve for the buffer, 'cause I really didn't want that part of the scope of this. So cin item, if I just did this, yes, I'm only going to be able to go up to the first white space, so something like Pop-Tarts wouldn't work. But I really don't want to solve that problem in this video here. What items do we add to the list? Do eggs, yes. Milk, okay, yes. And then I want tea, sure, why not? No. So then it's going to print out my list. Eggs, milk, tea. And as long as I'm not using more than one subsequent word, we're fine with the cin method. So Cool. Well, that was just a real quick dry cut uh, demo where we were able to just add stuff to the vector. There's so many more cool things that you can do with the vector. There's a lot of functions. You can insert things, you can overwrite things. You can also too dump the vector and completely empty it out if you want to just completely dump the vector and take all of the contents and delete all of the contents quickly. It's one function call. There's a lot of cool stuff that's in the vector, so please give it a good once over. Try it out. We were able to get through quite a bit of stuff on here, and that was fun to go through. And yeah, hopefully that helped. Thank you very much.